The laughter started before she even reached the table. It wasn't loud at first, just a ripple of amusement, the kind that spreads when someone believes they're about to witness a mistake they can enjoy. The room was filled with brass and ribbons, polished boots, and starched uniforms. Power lived in that space, heavy and unquestioned. And in the middle of it all stood her, small, still, holding out a badge that no one thought was real. "Is this some kind of joke?" the general asked, leaning back in his chair. She didn't flinch. Her hands were steady, even though her pulse hammered against her ribs. The badge caught the overhead light, gold-edged, worn smooth along the sides, as if it had been carried far longer than anyone guessed. But to them, it looked wrong. Too plain, too old, too out of place in a room obsessed with shine. "I was told to present this," she said quietly. The general snorted. "That's not one of ours. I've been wearing stars for 30 years. I know every badge in this building." He waved his hand dismissively. "Someone's played a prank on you." A few officers exchanged smirks. One of them shook his head, pity mixed with amusement. Another whispered, "Fake," as if the word explained everything about her presence. She swallowed, feeling the familiar heat of being underestimated crawl up her neck. This wasn't the first time. It never was. Her name was Captain Elena Moore, and she had learned early that silence was sometimes the only armor you had. She had learned to stand still while men twice her size decided who she was before she spoke a word. She had learned that respect wasn't given, it was taken, usually at a cost. But this time, the cost wasn't hers to pay. "I understand your concern, sir," she said evenly. "But I was instructed not to explain it, only to present it." The general laughed again, sharper now. "You expect me to believe the president himself handed you that?" He leaned forward, eyes hard. "I don't like being made a fool of, Captain." The room grew quieter. Someone cleared their throat. Another officer shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that something had gone wrong, but not yet sure what. Elena felt the weight of memory press against her chest. The desert nights, the long radio silences, the mission that officially never happened. She remembered the convoy ambush that wasn't in any report. The decision made in seconds that saved dozens of lives and doomed her team to vanish into the margins of history. She remembered dragging a wounded civilian through smoke while gunfire stitched the air around them. She remembered the moment a senior operative had pressed that badge into her palm, his voice low and urgent. "This isn't for show," he had said. "This is for doors that won't open any other way." Back in the present, the general reached for the badge, intending, she could tell, to toss it back across the table. But as his fingers closed around it, something changed. His expression faltered. He turned the badge over once. Then again, more slowly. The laughter died. The general's brows knitted together. His thumb traced a fine engraving along the bottom edge, barely visible unless you knew where to look. A seal, not embossed like the others, but etched deep and deliberate. An eagle, a shield, and above it, small, unmistakable, the presidential seal. The room went silent. Someone inhaled sharply. That's impossible," one of the colonels murmured. The general stood up so abruptly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. He held the badge closer to the light, his earlier confidence draining from his face. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice no longer mocking. Elena met his eyes. "From the person authorized to give it to me." For a long moment, no one spoke. The power in the room had shifted, tilting on an axis no one had expected. The general's hand trembled, not much, but enough. He knew the seal. Every officer at his level did. It wasn't ceremonial. It wasn't decorative. It meant direct authority, the kind that bypassed rank, protocol, and ego. It meant trust at the highest level. "I owe you an apology," he said finally, his voice low. The words landed heavily, not just because of who spoke them, but because of who heard them. Men who had never seen this general apologize stared at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at Elena. He placed the badge carefully back into her hand, as if it were fragile. "You should have been treated with respect the moment you walked in." Elena nodded, accepting the apology without triumph. This wasn't about winning. It never had been. The meeting continued, but everything had changed. Questions were asked differently. Orders were phrased with care. When Elena spoke, people listened, not because of the badge, but because of what it represented. Later, as the room emptied, the general stopped her at the door. "I misjudged you," he said. "And I won't make that mistake again." She gave a small, tired smile. "Most people do, sir." Walking down the hallway, Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. The badge felt warm in her pocket, heavier than gold. Not because of power, but because of proof. Proof that the quiet work mattered. That unseen sacrifices were seen by someone, somewhere. And as she stepped back into the world that would continue to doubt her tomorrow, she carried something stronger than validation. She carried the knowledge that truth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits, patient, underestimated, until the moment it's needed most. And when it finally speaks, even generals fall silent.